विजय जी, मेरी आवाज आ रही है क्या?
जी सर, जी जी जी।
आई एम सॉरी, इट वाज डिस्कनेक्टेड।
आ रही है सर।
नेटवर्क का इशू था हमारे एंड पे।
नो प्रॉब्लम सर,
जी
नो प्रॉब्लम।
जी
जी जी।
जी। मुझे प्रॉक्सी चेंज करके दोबारा से आना पड़ा। जी, आई एम सॉरी फॉर दैट। जी, प्लीज शुरू करिए। मैं शुरू करता हूँ। थैंक यू फॉर दिस वेरी नाइस इंट्रोडक्शन। आई थिंक जो वी आर ऑलरेडी लेट, तो लेट मी स्टार्ट शेयरिंग माय स्क्रीन। So I'm audible, no?
Yes sir, audible.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's good. Thank you. So good afternoon to all of you. I'm really thankful to the organizers, especially the lecturing department of REC Sonbhadra. I'm thankful to the administration of the REC Sonbhadra and AKT University for sponsoring this course, that is online faculty development program on smart technologies and communication protocols in power system. So I have been told that I'm the last speaker for this course. So definitely everybody will be in hurry to finish my slides. So today we are going to discuss in microgrids and their control in power system. And definitely the microgrid is a part of this smart technologies within this power system. And definitely the smart grid is a bigger subset where this microgrid technologies can be used, right? So we will directly start from, yeah. So this being a power system, this power generation and distribution have always been this key feature towards the development of this modern society since when this electricity has been introduced in our daily life. So being a power engineers, we are all always concerned about this increasing energy demand and this diminishing of primary energy availability, as it has been already told to us several times. Then we have also been warned about this traditional and aged electrical transmission and distribution networks. This traditional electric power grid, which we are using since more than 100 years, has been designed to accommodate this traditional energy distribution system, which makes it difficult to retrofit the ongoing changes of the new technologies in power and energy generation. And you know what are the changes going on. We will try to touch few of them one by one. So this traditional electric power grid, this faces many challenges related to its future development towards improved power generation and distribution. Identifying those challenges and developing necessary strategies to counter them is a critical parameter actually towards the growth which we are targeting or the growth which we are planning to have. So this utility grid, this becomes, when you are talking it about the smart, so this utility grid becomes computerized with improved technologies, new technologies such as power devices, and the new types of sources such as distributed energy resources, and the new generation, a new type of sources on which we are targeting for this with this decarbonized aspects. So they are the renewable energy resources, and this all includes, and this makes the smart grid with microgrid as a component of it. So when we talk about this distributed generation, so this distributed generation is basically right now we are having this major stress is being implemented from the government side also nowadays on these residential solar systems, and they are gaining popularity. Government is also giving sufficient subsidy on these things. But when we, and there are several attempts being done for their integration with the local distribution system also. But when such systems reduce sales for the utilities, because you are generating your electricity, it means you are not going to purchase it from the center, this utility distribution company. So this again becomes a major threat and a unique type of challenge for this utility, because in that case, in such cases, in such scenarios, utilities have to make necessary arrangements for the bidirectional flow of power and its metering. So this large scale power generation is also moving towards renewable one by one. You can say that every bigger company which was generating electricity from some other sources, they are generating electricity from renewable resources. Like NTPC is also planning to is also having one 10 megawatt solar power plant since last 4-5 years. It is very close to in this much far away, very close to this Jagatpur in Raebareli. There you can find. So there are several other things also where these conventional power generation companies are planning to move. So in new scenario, it is continuously observed that world's electricity system has started following the trend known as 3Ds. What are 3Ds? One is decentralize, means one bigger system is going to be replaced by several small generating power plants. Then decarbonize. Decarbonize is conventional power system generation resources. They are going to be replaced by non-conventional resources, which are environment friendly. And third is digitalize. It means more influence of this information and communication technology is going to impact this power system in the coming time. So these trends are driven by the need of this target is just to lower the electricity cost. It is going to replace the aging infrastructure. It is going to improve resilience and reliability. It is going to reduce CO2 emissions to mitigate climate challenge and provide reliable electricity to areas lacking electricity infrastructure. So today's story of grid, it began with this commercial first power plant distribution established by Thomas and Wyatt Edison in the late 19th century. That underwent consolidation and centralization driven by growing demand, and that is now experiencing the beginning of return of decentralization in forms of microgrids. Later, from 1920s to 1970s, the increased reliability in power system was afforded by connecting multiple generating units to diverse loads. Just to make larger size of generating stations, the target was to reduce the cost per kilowatt. And third was transmission lines were laid down to make this have this utilization of large generating power plants which are distant from the local urbanization, such as hydropower power plants, etc., which drove the development to this power grid of today. However, those advantages seem to have reached their limits because there is no chance of increasing efficiency of any thermal power generation, etc., or hydropower plants, etc., because this efficiency, conversion efficiency, they have reached up to the maximum limit. So there are new challenges right now where how to decrease this cost per kilowatt, and you will be happy to know that, or you must all be aware with this. Presently, this solar energy is touching every day lower cost per kilowatt or per unit, you can say, by installation of this bidding in the area of solar power generation. And new solar power plants are coming in they are integrating in the power system. So this is all is utility restructuring that is driven by the improved DER technologies, distributed energy resources, and the economic risks that accompany the construction of massive generating facilities and transmission infrastructure. Companies that generate electricity have been gradually shifting from this larger setup to smaller and decentralized units over time. So from here we can understand what is the scenario and how these changes are, what is the present scenario, in which direction it is being driven, and what are the major drivers for this upcoming change. So right now, when we start working on the power system, or we start with what is power which we are using, so we must come back to the concept of energy. So this universally, the energy has been considered as one of the most crucial measures for economic growth and human advancement. And electricity has been established as clean, efficient, affordable, and reliable energy services for this global prosperity, which we are targeting for every country and every nation. Second thing is that there is an upcoming challenge that population which is going to utilize this electricity in the coming time, that population is increasing day by day. And definitely this increase in population and increasing consumption, per capita consumption of this population, this cumulatively is going to be a bigger challenge. And as per one assumption, this International Energy Agency that has forecasted, this was published in 2016 report, that 30% increase in world energy demand is going to take place by 2040. Yes, this particular figure seems very small because in the coming time, as the power consumption is going to be increased by the growing population, but we are also expecting that the new technology equipments are going to be more efficient than the present time. So that is going to make this number 30% very smaller. So in this way, we can say this electricity that is coming from a fossil fuels or the conventional sources, which includes multiple energy conversion processes, like for the example, we can say the fossil fuels that are gas, coal and oil. We can say that burning of fossil fuels, then releasing heat energy, and this heat energy goes to then this conversion takes into electricity. So this is the multiple conversion steps are taking place when we are converting energy from fossil fuels to electricity. So what is happening? These multiple energy conversion processes, they are causing increased greenhouse gas emissions, and they are contributing to the global warming issues. And this multiple processes, the multiplication of efficiency is becoming a lesser number. So a total impact energy efficiency, you can calculate, that is conversion efficiency, is a very smaller number. So what happens to overcome these problems? This large scale deployment of renewable energy sources, which are solar, wind, biomass, hydro and tidal power, that is being done. And this has also been targeted by this United Nations Sustainable Development Goal number 7, that is affordable and clean energy. And another target is Paris Climate Agreement. So they are providing us these goals to promote the installation of renewable energy resources and use the electricity being generated from these sources. And how to define this renewable energy? Renewable energy is defined as energy produced from natural processes which are inexhaustible, right? And our conventional sources, they are exhaustible. Okay, so this is the difference. This is the new thing which is associated with the renewable energy, which we are targeting to use in coming time. These renewable energy sources offer solution to the challenges of rising energy demand without any global warming threat, with environmental sustainability. And one very important target they have, that they have the ability to provide power to even the most underprivileged people living in the remotest areas where traditional power is not yet available due to some geographical limitations or due to some conventional things in their local areas, where in those cases where the utility have not able to extend their distribution lines, this renewable resources can provide the electricity. So these renewable resources, they are classified into two categories. One is dispatchability and second is non-dispatchable resources. So this non-dispatchability basically comes from the intermittent nature of these renewable energy resources. But nowadays, this storage option, because the cost of storage is also going down day by day, right? So just because of this parameter, these renewable energy resources are becoming dispatchable nowadays, We are talking about network microgrids nowadays. We are talking about the flexibility options to be provided by these smaller microgrids when they are properly networked, and some algorithm is working with them to provide as a network of microgrids. So these new things which are coming day by day, they have sufficiently given option to these renewable energy resources to be treated as dispatchable resources of electricity. As we told here that we are using this solar, wind, biomass and tidal power as renewable resources, but in some studies, these large hydropowers are not considered as renewable resources. And I will refer this paper over here of 2004. They have made an experimentation and they have taken the real-time measurements where they have discussed that the greenhouse gas emissions, mainly nitrogen, carbon dioxide, and methane produced by this underwater through biomass decomposition by bacteria, they are also generating the greenhouse gases up to the level of those conventional power energy resources. That is really surprising, but they have given some proof and this measurement. There is one question from Mukul. Mukul, can we take questions in the last, if you allow? Okay, thank you, Mukul. So this particular paper is a reference for this, which gives a clear indication that large hydropowers cannot be considered as renewable energy sources, right? Small hydropower plants can be. So this integration of renewable energy resources is definitely their integration in the main grid is a challenge due to their intermittence, randomness, and the uncertainty caused by meteorological resources or meteorological factors, right, which can be overcome with the use of battery storage or other type of storage for energy. There are different types of energy storages. We will just take a glimpse of that in the coming slides, right? So these are the DERs, distributed energy resources, right? So we are going to learn the second term here. First we learned about this RER and second is DER, right? So this DER is a bigger term where RER is going to a subset of it. So these distributed energy resources, they are the on-site generation sources in distribution system. It may cover renewable energy resources on site like rooftop solar panel or your wind turbine in your backyard of your house, etc., etc. Right? They can also cover this micro conventional generators. They can also include energy storage systems which make these RERs dispatchable, right? It again saying the same thing, the uncertainties due to volatile and intermittent nature of renewable energy resources are overcome using energy storage systems as well as micro conventional generators in the time when this solar energy or wind energy is not available and their generation is not taking place. Then this can be compensated using these micro conventional generators. So these are the advantages of distributed energy resources, like high efficiency, energy production savings, environmental protection, reduction of transmission and distribution losses, because these are the on-site generation, right? So there is no need of transmission and distribution. And these support the local power grid and they improve its resiliency and reliability. And definitely they make the system more stable. And one more very important thing is that with successful implementation of these microgrids, the new capacity investments on generation, transmission, and distribution on such conventional parameters, they can be deferred for some time, right? And they can also provide some ancillary services we will talk about later in the one slide. Then they also provide this power quality improvement because they can improve this voltage profile, they can improve this power factor improvement, etc., etc. And in cold countries, this electric power system is considered as heat and power system, CHP, and these DERs have a capability to support this CHP function. They can also provide support in demand reduction and standby generation with this storage capacity. So these are the advantages of DERs. As I told you, one term there is ancillary service. So this particular slide refers about this ancillary service, which are the functions that help grid operators in maintaining a reliable electricity systems. So whenever there is a peak in the demand, this is being filled by these ancillary services, which are made available for fulfilling these small peaks in the generation in the consumption profile. So these are these are required to maintain the proper flow and direction of electricity. Ancillary services address imbalances between supply and demand, and these help the system recover after a power system event, even from a blackout also. So these additional ancillary services may be required to manage increased variability and uncertainty, which is definitely going to be larger when we are going to rely on these renewable energy resources. And we are targeting more renewable energy penetration, right? In some Australia states, there are 2 states, they have targeted this 50% of renewable energy integration by 2030, and their targets are more higher integration in the coming years. So definitely these things are going to increase. So these ancillary services can include synchronized regulation, contingency reserves, black start regulation, and flexibility reserves, right? So if you have any query, we can discuss these things in the last, okay? So this integration of DERs, the new problems which we can work on, they are the optimal sizing, different types of control, and how their scheduling shall take place so that these energy resources can participate in the supply of electricity. A microgrid is definitely this combination which integrates distributed energy resources in the power grid, and also it has an ability to operate in an islanded mode, right? So this is the basic requirement of a microgrid, that it must be capable to operate in islanded mode, means when it is not getting supply from the main utility or main grid. Clear? So this basic definition, these are the basic blocks of the definition of microgrid, which are being defined by several institutions, by several agencies in different languages, but requirements are same. So these microgrids can be defined as small local distribution systems, including a set of renewable energy resources, storage systems such as flywheel, energy, capacitors, and batteries, and then controllable and uncontrollable loads, right? If there are controllable loads, then definitely the control of microgrid or this energy role of this energy management system, they are going to be more easier. So these MGs can be connected to utility grid in grid connected mode, or they can operate independently when isolated from the utility grid, that is during faults or some other external disturbances, and definitely leading to the increased quality of supply, higher efficiency for its customers of utility, and cheaper and cleaner energy. I repeat, cheaper and cleaner energy. So it is more economical and this environment friendly also. So these are the key features. Additionally, they also enhance, so whatever the advantages we have studied in the last slides about this DERs and other things, they are also again being, they will again become the characteristics of these microgrids, like local reliability is enhanced, This lower investment cost is there, which can defer higher investments, and then it reduces emissions, it improves power quality, and definitely this transmission and distribution, they are missing, so power losses are reduced, right? So these MGs are referred as next generation power systems. That's why they are sometimes considered as a part of a smart grid also. And as I told you, DER's energy storage system and this controllable and non-controllable loads, and this communication with support of this information and communication technology, that is also a very important part of these microgrid framework, because the components or the blocks of these microgrids, they are distributed a bit, they are intelligent, that's why control is required, which understands the control, and they are tightly integrated with the network so that it is available in case of grid connected as well as islanded mode. And now nowadays what is happening, that everything is getting smarter day by day, right? So it is not the grid which is smart, right? These are the customers which are using smart, making a smart use of it. As I always give an example, right? Whatever, how much smartphone you are using, but the similar phone, if it is being used by a young kid of the age of some 14, 15, he always brings the something new within that phone, which we at the age of 50 or 40 do not want to, do not know if this particular phone, a smartphone, can also be utilized for this activity, right? So it is the user who makes the technology smart, who highlights the smartness of that particular technology. And in the new time, this integration of Internet of Things, and in the new times when this industry 4.0 is coming, and in the new time when the smart cities, they are going to use these microgrids, and they are going to use this network microgrids, and definitely a very large use of this communication technology, and more digital assets are going to be used within this smart grid and microgrid network. So that is making it more smart energy system, right? And nowadays what is happening, we are making our distribution system more smart, and always this microgrids, they are connected to at some point of this distribution power system, always they are, right? So if this is required, it is connected to the grid. If it is not required, it is not connected to it. It is being used as in islanded mode, right? So as I told you earlier, this definition of microgrid, it is given by this US Department of Energy. This definition was reported in some 2012. The reference is given over here. This is a group of interconnected loads and distributed energy resources. It means it is having loads, it is having its own loads, it is having its own resources, right? And with clearly defined electrical boundaries, the limits, physical limits on the geographical plane. जमीन के ऊपर boundary defined है कि यहाँ से यहाँ तक, right? And this acts as a single controllable entity with respect to the grid. It means it is connected to the grid at a common point of coupling on the grid, which can be connected or disconnected from the grid, right? It means it can be used, it can operate in both grid connected as well as islanded mode. So this is the definition. This was the first definition which is available in record by the US Department of Energy about this term microgrid. So this particular definition describes these three requirements. First is the part of distribution system, which comprises a microgrid. Second, it has its own resources as well as it has its own loads, right? Third, it can be connected, it can be used in a grid connected mode as well as islanded mode, right? But this particular definition is silent about what will be the size of distributed energy resources, what will be the types of technologies, conventional, non-conventional, renewable, etc. This classification is nowhere touched in this definition, right? And this liberty allows us that even the diesel generator sets, which are conventional power resources, they can also be the part of this microgrid. Okay, so this is the liberty which is given by this definition. Then there is a SIGRE working group, C6.22. That group has also defined microgrid as they are the electricity distribution systems containing loads and distributed energy resources, means they are having their own resources, they are having their own loads, right? They are having their generators, storage devices, and controllable loads, right? And they can be operated in a controlled and coordinated way in connected as well as islanded mode. Clear? So this is the definition. These two definitions, they are talking in the same direction, but only just this is rearrangement of words they are using, but almost the components they are talking about, the requirements they are talking about, the microgrids, they are almost same. So this particular paper of 2006, this conceptualized this microgrid with these 5 critical functions: the nature of connection with the main utility, precise energy and power balance within the microgrid, then comes the energy storage, then comes the demand management, and then seasonal match between generation and load, because as per this environmental conditions or as per these climatic conditions, the generation and load both vary, right? So in this, a matching of this demand and supply, this must be properly taken care during this energy, this control of microgrid. This is another paper of this 2020. This is from Renewable and System Energy Reviews. This gives a conceptual picture of microgrid with its critical functions, where it is connected to a main utility. It gives a guarantee to no disturbances on outside grid. It gives that there are islanding schemes. It gives that potential services flows, renewable energies, effect balance, and stabilities, they all are taken care. Then comes the demand management, and in this it considers different models where this economic with differential rates, environmental to target, and stability to outside grid, they are also considered. Then it comes this energy storage, where energy storage is being in different forms of batteries, flywheels, connected electric vehicles, because electric vehicles are also considered as battery on wheels. So this provides energy when this generation is low, and this balance and frequency control, voltage profile control, these all are taken care by this energy storage. And then comes this seasonal match between generation and load. So different production sources as per the climatic conditions, because solar and wind, they are basically driven by the climatic conditions. And then comes the long-term storage, such as pump hydro, hydrogen gas, fuel cell, etc., etc. Then this precise energy and power balance within the microgrid, and here comes the role of energy management. Here comes the role of proper control of these microgrids. So here comes the microgrid characteristics, where these generation and storage options are taken care. So the microgrids are somewhat technology agnostic, and their design choices will depend on project specific requirements where these microgrids are required, right? And there are certain economic considerations also, what technology shall be used for generation and which technology shall be opted for the energy storage, right? So we can see it here, this microgrid generation options are given they are listed along with their advantages and disadvantages. So very reliable technology for this microgrid generation can be considered as diesel and spark ignition, where these IC engines are being used. Definitely they are having the advantages of being dispatchable, load following, quick startup, and definitely, as I told you, this combined heat and power option they can support, right? This combined heat and power option is an essential requirement of power system ancillary services when we are using these things in some climatically cold countries. So there it is a must in support of this power system. But the disadvantages of these this particular option, technology option, is they are a heavy source of noise. They emit greenhouse gases, and they emit nitrogen oxide and this particulate emissions, which are creating a lot of hue and cry in this environmental scenario of New Delhi. These particulate emissions, they are available there in large numbers. So definitely their use is being discouraged by the civil authorities. Then comes the micro turbines, right? That is also a reliable technology. The power is dispatchable, having low emissions, mechanical simplicity they are having, and they are having multiple fuel options of as a fuel resource for these turbines. And definitely they are combined heat and power support. They are capable of it. But there is one disadvantage. It depending upon these fuel options, they also provide these greenhouse gas emissions, which may vary as per the fuel used. It may low, it may become high, but definitely they say it, you cannot rule out the possibility of these greenhouse gas emissions with these. Then comes the fuel cell. And these fuel cells are also having different technologies such as solid oxide, molten carbonate, phosphoric acid, alkaline, and low temperature PEMs are being used. And their advantages are dispatchable, they are CHP capable, and they are providing zero on-site pollution, right? But they are relatively expensive, and they are having very limited lifetime in comparison to the investment made on them. Then comes the renewable energy sources generation, like solar PV cells, small wind turbines, and mini hydro. Yes, they are having very higher efficiency in comparison to these micro turbines. They are having almost zero fuel cost. They are having zero emissions also, but they are not a source of dispatchable energy without storage. That adds a new cost, and they are variable and not controllable, right? So if they are not dispatchable, you are not providing sufficient support of energy storage in sufficient quantity, then this variable thing is not of your any use. Then comes the storage option. Storage options are batteries, then comes the flow batteries, hydrogen from hydrolysis, and then comes the kinetic energy storage such as flywheels. So there are advantages also. The batteries, they are the very conventional storage options, and they are very proven technologies, very successful technology with this lead acid and sodium sulfur, this lithium ion and nickel cadmium. They are a little bit newer technologies, but they are having a long history of research and development. But they have one very large disadvantage, that they are having a limited number of charge discharge cycles, as well as this waste disposal of the upcoming new technology, this lithium ion, etc. They are very dangerous in case of waste disposal terms, and definitely some special arrangements are required for their disposable, making them disposable, right? This lead acid, etc., they were not that dangerous, and this lead acid was almost recyclable, almost, right? So every part of it was recyclable, and that was a major reason its cost went down and down in a large period of time. Then comes the flow batteries, right? So these flow batteries are also known as regenerative fuel cells, and they provide this zinc bromine, then polysulfide bromide, vanadium redox. So several different such technologies are available for these regenerative fuel cells. Yes, they have the advantages of decoupled power energy storage. They can do it, and definitely they are able to support continuous operation at maximum load and complete discharge, which was not available with the batteries, right? And these flow batteries can provide this support without risk of damage, right? So this is the advantage, but this disadvantage is that they are at a very early stage of deployment, and definitely their cost is also very high presently, right? We can expect in the coming time, with the success of technology, with the more uses of technology, that can go down, okay? Then comes the hydrogen from hydrolysis. That is definitely very clean technology, right? This is the advantage, but this disadvantage is that relatively low end-to-end efficiency is there, and the challenges to store hydrogen is also are existing there. And third point is there, there is a complete battery, vehicles are there, electric vehicles, this hydrogen run vehicles are there, but this filling of hydrogen in those vehicles is also very time consuming, right? So that takes too much time in refueling of these hydrogen in these vehicles, which can also be used as a moving source of energy. So then comes the kinetic energy storage, which is flywheel, a very old and established concept of energy storage. Yes, it has advantages of fast response, high charge discharge cycles, high efficiency, but their discharge time is very limited, and their losses are very high if they are standing for long times, if they are not discharging. So this charge discharge shall be done at a regular. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay, I got a message. My mic is not working. That's why this system generated message came on the screen actually. Okay, so where I was. Yeah, so I was here. So these are the various renewable microgrid generation and storage options are there in case of microgrid. So the objectives which were we attempted, we means as a population, where the microgrid helps in achieving following objectives: that efficient transmission of passive network into an active one, because as a customer you becomes prosumer, and this bidirectional and controlled power flow management is there. Reliable and continuous supply is there with the use of microgrid. You must have read so many examples are there after this climatic catastrophes. When this distribution systems were totally damaged, they were the locally established microgrids. They were the only resource of electricity in those areas for weeks and for even for months also. I do not remember the name, but that island in America, it was having the similar situations. They are repeating annually. They are repeating, right? So they are in a process of developing a very strong and robust microgrid in that particular area. We will discuss those things later. So what are the requirements for flexible operations of microgrid? They require this power electronic interfaces and controls which are properly integrated with these distributed energy resources. So these are the advantages which are being offered by MGs. So we will not stop here. They are almost repeating every time. But definitely these microgrids have some limitations, such as they are limited use of energy resources. Rather, we shall use the term optimal, because in this scenario, what happens, our earlier system, conventional system, was load following. As much load is there, we are going to promote that much generation, right? We have studied those numericals in this unit commitment, or this how many units are required for this much amount of generation, if this is the load curve, right? So those days are gone. In this newer power system, newer scenario of renewable energy resources based power system, our generation, our system is going to be generation following rather than being the load following, right? So what will happen in this scenario? Your generation profile will be fixed during the day, and that will clearly indicate that this much amount of generation you are going to have today. Now adjust your consumption of your loads according to this generation, right? So this is the change in scenario from load following to generation following. Okay, and there are several limitations for these control issues. Then there are some most of these microgrid systems in part of DC, there are some protection issues, there are some regulatory standards, they are not available in several countries, and definitely this customers' privacy, in which in few countries that are they are very important aspect, because with this particular the generation following scenario, your requirement is going to be limited, right? And accordingly, this is going to be publicized, what is your load pattern, what is your energy consumption pattern, and in few countries, this is treated as customers' privacy violation. So this is again a limitation which is being faced by the policymakers in few countries, where multiple options of electricity generation are available for the consumers. So let me tell you, this microgrid, which term was coined around 2000 or in the late 90s, this was not a new thing. Term was new, but microgrid concept was not new. Actually, in this particular slide, I will try to establish that this Thomas Alva Edison power plant, which he established in this Pearl Street in 1982, that was also a microgrid, right? Because it was having a limited resource generation, it was having a limited load, it was having a specific geographical boundary of that 11 kilometers on the Pearl Street in Chicago. So if you these particular qualities of that Thomas Alva Edison's power plant, that is sufficient to qualify as per the requirements defined about microgrid, right? It is having their own sources, it is having their own loads, it is having this geographical boundary, and it was used in totally islanded mode because there was no grid at that time. Okay, so this was basically a microgrid as per today's definition. And what Edison did, it installed almost 50 DC microgrids there in 4 years, from 82 onwards, right? Later, what happened is utility grid started significantly utilizing large centralized power plants, because the concept of economies of scale, as I told you in the introduction, right? This economies of scale that came into concept just to make the cost of electricity per kilowatt lower, right? And then for this reliability purposes, we started making these large, very long transmission connections just to take the electricity from the hydroelectric power plants, remotely located plants, or some remotely located coal-based power plants, etc., etc. Right? And later, this particular small microgrid experiment that converted into monopolistic utility by connecting isolated microgrids. And then these microgrids, they faded away. So these microgrids recently, they have come as, again, they have come just because of their advantages of higher reliability and better power quality. Just because of these advancement in power electronics and DER technologies, their implementation and control both has become easier, right? And the smaller size availability of these generations like PV resource, PV solar panel, or small wind turbines, availability of these assets, these resources has made them that much affordable for individuals to install them on their rooftop or their in backyard, right? So these are the new things which are coming. Now, let me share with you from where this microgrid term came, right? So this microgrid was the term which was this basically coined by this Robert Leicester. He was a researcher in University of Wisconsin-Madison who was investigating on the small devices lesser than 100 kilowatt called microturbines, right? And it was very interesting that these microturbines were used in the university buildings as backup power generators, right? And every building was having, few of the buildings were having several microturbines, right? And they were initially working separately as a local power source for that particular building or part of that building, right? Robert Leicester targeted to operate them in a synchronous manner as one integrated power generation source, right? He targeted, basically, he was not aware with this, but what he was targeting a unified control for all these microturbines, right? And later, when he developed this hardware, he called it controller, right? So finally, when he designed this hardware, he called it controllers capable to regulate the voltage and frequencies, right? Earlier, when this controller was not working, then there were several crash of the setups because of this frequency variations and other things, which you can better understand as an electrical engineer, that just because of those reasons, this was having some very dangerous high voltages, and this was having this frequency fluctuations, etc., etc. And definitely that was causing a much stability issues, and it was getting down. So finally, when he developed a unified hardware for this, he called it controller, right? And that controller was capable to regulate the voltage and frequencies of the multiple generator loads, which were supplying the loads existing in the various buildings of the University of Wisconsin-Madison, right? And that proof of concept which was set up at that time is still existing in this Columbus, Ohio campus, right? And you can find more details in this particular paper. Later, this Leicester, who started working in 1990 there, right? In 1990s, not exactly 90, in that particular decade, he started working. And finally, in 2002 IEEE PES winter meeting, he laid out his vision as the term microgrid, right? So this was the title of the paper of the Leicester, which he published, which he presented in this IEEE PES winter meeting in January 2002, this PES meeting, right? The title is Microgrids. You can find this paper on this IEEE Explore, and you can better understand what work was done by the Leicester, and how did he present his complete findings as a paper, and he gave the term first time this microgrid, right? And later other definitions by US Energy Department and what was SIGRE definitions, they came as I discussed you earlier, right? So what Leicester presented in this paper, in these two papers, one was in Germany, PESC, that was a reputed conference of European Union, at European countries at that time. I think Union was not there at that time. So this microgrid should be able to operate independently or in islanded mode from the central grid, right? Now you can compare these three findings from the definitions of SIGRE and as well as Department of Energy USA, right? Second point was the system should be modular, because they were working between the various buildings of the university, right? So the system should be modular so that new generation sources and loads can be added to the system without additional configuration. Yes, and this particular finding of Leicester is being utilized today when we are talking about the network of microgrids, right? And a new term is coming as networked microgrid, which is going to be very useful in future for providing the flexibility business or flexibility support from these very small microgrids, which were not supposed to be capable earlier for providing the flexibility support. But in the coming time, this is the new topic of research. I invite you all for this particular research topic on this, because definitely this is the time for which this flexibility of microgrids, flexibility by networked microgrids, they are going to be a topics for the coming time. Then comes the foundational microgrid research. This foundational research on microgrid was started by two different agencies. One was CERTS, that was Consortium for Electrical Reliability Technology Solutions, and second was Microgrid Project in Europe, right? So these are the two basic foundational research were started in the area of microgrid, and most of the protocols being used in the microgrid nowadays, they are coming from these two foundational research programs, that is CERTS and microgrids. So if we talk about the CERTS, this CERT was formed in 1999, and this is treated as the origin of the modern grid-connected microgrid concept. And it envisioned that microgrid could incorporate multiple DERs, right? So initially it is not limited. Yes, you can understand that it is not limited to single DER, because it is taken as a network of loads and multiple resources, right? So present itself to the existing grid as a typical customer or a small generator, right? So when you are connecting this microgrid to the distribution system at a point of common coupling, so it is a load when it is taking supply from the grid, right? But when it is in islanded mode, it is not taking supply from the grid. It is, you can understand it as a complete system with some specific loads and some specific generation, which are capable to meet this energy demand and supply balance. They are capable of maintaining that. Then in this particular search project, the emphasis was placed on seamless and automatic islanding. Whenever there is no power from this distribution system, it will come to the islanded mode, and whenever there is a supply from the utility distribution system, it will become the grid connected mode, right? And the specific controls which were developed for this scenario in CERTS, they are reactive power versus voltage, they are active power versus frequency, and then power flow versus frequency. So this is mainly AC microgrid which has been targeted in that, right? So the primary motivation, which is going to be different for different systems. So primary motivation for CERT project was improved reliability, means more reliability was the concept. It was not emphasizing on reducing the reduced emission of greenhouse gases. No, it was not their target, right? So the CERT project of US, that was targeting more emphasis was there on the improved reliability or resilience, you can say, right? So these CERTs microgrids can incorporate renewable energy resources, though this GHG emission reduction is not the main target, right? But it was allowed, they were using this renewable energy resources within this CERT project protocol. Then comes the microgrid project, right? This microgrid project, this was taken in the European Union. At that time, these 22 partners from 11 European Union countries were taking part in it, and technical challenges were safe islanding and reconnection, then management of this energy in both the modes, then control strategies under different modes, and then protection and communication protocols, right? So these were targeted in that, and in these this 11 countries, two unions, this two partners from Great Britain, two from Portugal, two from Spain, two from Netherlands, one from Denmark, one from France, and 4 from Greece, 4 from Germany, Switzerland, Italy, each one, and then Poland. There were 2 partners. A total 22 partners were there from 11 European Union countries in this microgrid project, right? And this particular microgrid project, the second part of this particular micro project was more microgrids, right? So that was the next of microgrid, like part 1 and part 2 of the movies, you can say. So the next part of this project was more microgrids, right? You can also Google that term and read about it. And if you want to read about microgrids, this is the website where you can get more details about this microgrid project. Then comes this microgrid architecture, right? This microgrid, again, we shall start from that. Microgrids is having DERs, it is having responsive loads, it is having critical loads, connected to main grid through a common coupling. So these are the main things. But basically what is happening, the main thing is that it is central controller and local controller, right? They are having the main role in this microgrid architecture, because this DER and everything, you all know that what is happening. And so one more thing is there, this power electronic interfaces are there, right? So the role of power electronics is also very important in their control of these different components of these microgrids, and they are having this objective of control, metering, protection, and ability of plug and play feature, which is islanded and grid connected mode, right? Second is MGs can also participate in power trading with main grid, right? If they are having some additional source of energy within them, right? So this all is possible with this central controller and local controller. And in this particular diagram, which has been taken from this paper, here you can understand that a complete setup with all these things are there, and with each attribute, right, there is a local controller. With this, here is a local controller. This is the main grid. This is the switch, right? And this particular switch is allowing the grid connected and islanded mode, but a local controller is there to control these things, right? And again comes electric vehicles, which are also considered as battery on wheels, right? To connect all these things, again, there is a local controller. Then comes the smart buildings, right? Smart buildings can manage their load, and they can manage their electricity demand accordingly, and they can generate also, right? The smart buildings and smart homes, they are the almost similar things, but the size is larger, scale is larger, this scale is lower, right? So again, the local controller is here for each of these, right? Then comes the energy storage, right? So this energy storage is again fuel cell, battery, kinetic energy, this flywheel. Then comes this this what we say it, pumped storage, etc. They come in this energy storage and they can participate. Again, there is a local controller, right? And then comes the conventional generation sources. Here comes the IC based generation, here comes the coal based generation, here comes the gas based, hydropower based, and everything is there, but there is again a local controller, right? And then comes the renewable energy sources. So these solar power, wind, this underwater generation is there, etc., etc. But again, they are connected to the main controller with this local controller. Next stage, as I told you, they can also participate in power trading with the main grid. So here comes the weather forecast, here comes the energy market participation, and these two blocks using the energy forecast and weather forecast, which are depending on each other, on the local load conditions, are dependent on the climatic conditions also. So this again, this mathematics which can be implemented using some algorithm, and accordingly, if they are having some excess energy, then this can sell it. If it needs more energy from their internal requirement, internal generation, then it can purchase it, right? So accordingly, this microgrid central controller is capable of handling all these things, and definitely this microgrid central controller makes it a smart system, right? So this smartness is being increasing day by day with the implementation of new technologies, new algorithms, new techniques coming day by day, and they are being integrated to make the systems more smart, right? So this way, we hope that in the coming time, this dependence on renewable resources is going to be more, and meeting our targets of this climatic requirement as per the United Nations and this Paris Protocol. Then comes the classification of microgrid. This classification of microgrid can be taken as on the basis of this type of power, which can be AC and DC. Then it comes the supervisory control. It can be taken as centralized and decentralized. Then it comes from operation mode. This can be taken as islanded and grid connected. Then comes the phase, number of phases, supply phases. It can be taken as single phase or three phase. And then comes the application, right? We will discuss these applications also. With one example, we will discuss also. So these applications are residential, commercial, industrial, or they can be utility, municipality, military, and we will also consider one example of university microgrid. Okay, so we will accordingly, we will move. So then comes the energy management system. So this energy management system is basically a computer system comprising a software platform with which is capable of handling this power electronic interfaces, switches, etc., to provide the functionality. So so as to assure adequate security of energy supply and at minimum cost. Yes, like economics is the main requirement for the coming power system to make the electricity more affordable for all classes of the society, right? So this EMS consists of DERs, load forecasting module, human machine interface, and this is SCADA, etc., among other modules, right? So this microgrid energy management system provides many benefits, from generation dispatch to energy savings, from reactive power to frequency regulation, from reliability to low cost reduction of losses, then energy balance and lesser mitigation of these greenhouse gas emissions, etc., etc., right? And this EMS strategies, they provide this optimal decisions for generation, storage, and controllable and uncontrollable loads both. So these are the functions of energy management system. They monitor, analyze, and forecast of power generation of DERs. They forecast of load consumption, electric market prices, ancillary market prices, and meteorological factors, etc., etc., can be monitored, analyzed, and forecasted. And accordingly, this data monitoring, data analytics, forecasting. So as we are using that, this ICT is going to have a very important role. And in the coming time, when this data science is going to emerge as a specific branch of computer system, then definitely this data science is also going to be used in this power system for making our power system more smart, right? So we will provide a sufficient scope for all the new upcoming areas in the areas of communication system, in the areas of computer systems, etc., etc. So these energy management system, they towards optimize MG operation while satisfying the technical constraints and real-time control, right? So what are the constraints which will be satisfied and what will the objectives? Here we can make a summary of this constraints and objectives. We can think of that what are the constraints. They are being put in red here, and these objectives are put in green. So this constraints are network constraints are there. They are the first thing. Then comes the energy balancing. Then comes the output limits of renewable resources from minimum to maximum. Then comes the demand response. Participation is there or not. Then comes the reactive power support within their limits. Then comes the reliability, the most important part. And then comes the physical limits of conventional generators, physical limits of energy storage systems, etc., etc. They are the constraints in energy management strategies of microgrid. Then comes the objectives, right? So the very first objective is energy transaction cost. Then comes the operation and maintenance cost of conventional generator. Then comes the localized, levelized cost of energy of renewable resources. Then operational and maintenance cost of energy storage system, greenhouse gas emission cost, load shedding penalty cost, losses cost, demand response incentives if their participation, and outages and interruptions cost, if any. And then comes the battery degradation cost, right? So these are the various objectives which are considered as which shall be considered for any energy management optimization problem. So this is the list. Then comes the classification of microgrid management aspects. So this management concept, when you formulate a problem about this energy management, that goes in the two different directions. You can see that various experts are here who are working in this area, and they must be aware that this thing, this microgrid management goes in two different directions. One is in the area of energy, and second goes in the area of control, where this frequency control, voltage control, active power control, reactive power control, and so many parameters are controlled, right? And these controls are done in the two different modes, grid connected mode and islanding mode. And when this is islanding mode, so it is limited to PQ control only. But when it is in grid connected mode, again, the controllers are decentralized controllers or centralized controllers, right? And these are this voltage frequency, master slave, group control. So these are the different control techniques which are being used in this microgrid management, right? And when it goes in the direction of energy, then is the cost, emission, revenue, losses, they shall be minimum cost. Then goes to multifunction and single function. Definitely multifunction is right now they are working in that direction. Then comes the optimization function subject to the constraints as we have discussed, and then comes the outcome of a optimal problem is taken as a global response or global optimal condition, you can say. So, but in available literature, the energy management has been investigated more in this energy area in comparison to control aspects. This I can say on the basis of some literature survey. If you have a liberty to differ from it, I cannot compel you for this, because it depends upon the interest of the personal researcher in which area he wants to continue. And here comes a concept of this network microgrid, right? So this network microgrid, or you can say multi-microgrids, where multiple microgrids, they are being connected through a utility grid distribution management system. So this distribution systems, they could consist of multi-microgrid system made up of several microgrids, and each of them is equipped with distributed energy resources, power electronic control, that interfaces are there, and there they have this storage devices which are capable of balancing to a wider area of the distribution system during blackouts, right? And they all are having similar type of control. This primary, secondary, and tertiary control is a part of this is called hierarchical control scheme for normal and emergency conditions, both of these individual microgrids, which are which are connected at different locations of this distribution system, right? So this management in multi-microgrid is done by this one distribution management system, which is shown here as a utility grid DMS, right? And this DMS will receive control signals from medium voltage network and individual microgrid master controllers, right? And this DMS performs optimization, then it sends proper signals to individual microgrids for their load sharing or maintaining rated voltages and frequencies. And so these are the different steps which are taking part in this control of multi-microgrids within a distribution system. Then I can share one example with you. This I have taken from this paper, which is operation and control of a microgrid. And this microgrid, this is a very good example of Illinois Institute of Technology, which was established there for study purposes on microgrid. And this particular diagram shows the objectives and functions for the operation and control of this microgrid. And this is having primary control, this is having secondary control here, and this is the tertiary control, right? And this is divided into this economic operation and short-term reliability, right? So this operation and control of microgrid, and this study was done for presenting islanding, then road, this restoration of loads, and again this resynchronization processes in this. This was basically a MV distribution network, right? So this was done in the medium voltage distribution network, right? So this particular figure is clearly illustrating the microgrid functions and this control tasks associated with each function. This primary control is controlling these components, right? And which are components are this building controllers, gas turbines, solar PV, wind turbine, battery storage, these switches, then meters and PMUs. I will give you the components, data of components in my later presentation, right? And these are the switches at point of common coupling. They are here, right? And this secondary control is providing you economic demand response. This is providing you islanding and desynchronization. This is providing you emergency demand response. And this is also capable of providing self-healing, the very important aspect, very important attribute of the smart grid function systems. And then there is a tertiary control, which is giving support for this grid coordination, right? So these things are taking part in this very good example of microgrid has been taken. And short term, this particular grid was this was connected to the local utility grid through some point of common coupling, to which they call their north and south substations in their own setup, right? And this short-term reliability algorithm applied at the microgrid master controller, right, considers seamless islanding, and then comes the desynchronization, and then comes this emergency demand response provisions, and then comes this self-healing in case of major outage, on any side of the point of common coupling, right? So this was capable of handling the islanded mode operations in a successful way, right? And then comes this hierarchical control structure of this particular grid. So this particular grid you can say that this is functionally, basically, this is a 3-level hierarchical control as shown in the previous diagram. This primary, secondary, and tertiary is applied here, and it is 3 control levels are considered. At primary control, you can say that this primary control, which is based on the Drupe characteristics of DERs for sharing the microgrid. Then comes the secondary control, which performs corrective actions to mitigate frequency and voltage errors introduced by Drupe control. And then comes the tertiary control, which manages the flow between. This is the tertiary control, right? So this is managing the flow between the microgrid and the utility grid, and providing the optimal scheduling of these DER units, which are here, and demands for both islanded and as well as grid connected mode, right? And as I talked to you earlier, the ancillary services to the utility grid, they are also provided by this microgrid in terms of voltage and frequency regulation and restoration services, right? So this primary control is performed at DER level. Here you can see the primary control is used over here in the distribution and resources. So this at this level it is done. The master controller performs the centralized, secondary, and tertiary controls, and in this way it moves on. Okay, so these are the building control systems. This is the distribution control system. This is again going to master controller directly, right? And this is controlling in both the directions, right? So this is generation control. Generation is done in terms of gas turbine generation, solar PV is there, wind is there, right? And control system is done, this storage is done using this battery storage, charging station, etc., right? So the drivers, what are the drivers for this particular thing? Acha, one more thing I would like to express with you, that this master controller, this is a hierarchical controller structure of this particular grid, microgrid we shall say, and this master controller obtains the campus generation and load data through supervisory control and data acquisition. Different arrangements are done for this, as this microgrid is equipped with building meters and 12 number of PMUs, phasor measurement units, right? And these two things, they together report building electricity consumption and instantaneous voltage and current data of this DER units, right? And this sampling rate of considered here is 1 signal per cycle for the master controller. The master controller determines the optimal hourly solution at base case and contingencies, and sends the tertiary control signals to the on-site generation, to storage, to high reliability distribution system switches, HRDS switches, and building controllers for each building control systems, right? And these are definitely this sub building Zigbee control system is also implemented over there. This function enables a real-time monitoring and control of these elements of the microgrid. And this building control system, they facilitate building consumption management by reducing or shifting building loads as per the operating mode commands given by the master controller, right? So this master controller is a very smart controller in this particular case, and this particular grid can be used in grid connected as well as island mode both, and this grid can be used in 2 different modes depending upon 2 reasons when this is shifted to island mode, that is poor power quality or frequency or voltage problems are there, major faults or service interruptions are there in the utility grid, etc. So the master controller can initiate the islanding here in such cases, and they can take the signal from PMU about the bad power quality or something like that, and then the meters installed at this PCC, point of common coupling, they also participate in making these decisions, and they give inputs to the master controller, and master controller decides accordingly, right? So when in the islanded mode, in this particular system, this natural gas turbine and battery storage system, they maintain the rated frequency and voltage through the primary and the secondary control functions, right? So there are so many things. If you want to go for more details, you can read this paper of 2015. The basic researcher behind this is Mohammad Shahidehpour. He was the one of the persons who started his research in that time after this beginning in this microgrid, right? So you can find several works of Shahidehpour in this particular direction. Then this is the one of the paper which expresses about this microgrid established in this Illinois Institute of Technology, right? So these are the drivers of microgrid which we are going to develop. We can classify them in three broad categories. Why the microgrid shall be developed, right? So these are the energy security, these are the economic benefits, and they are the clean energy integration. I think this is the time to summarize the things now. So this energy security that is required in case of severe weather, right? And as per data available, this severe weather has cost something like $18 billion to $33 billion per year on an average between 2003 to 2012 due to this lost output and wages, due to this spoiled inventory of the factories, due to this delayed production in the industries, and damage to the physical damage to the electric grid just because of this severe weather, right? So, and this outage has caused these damages. And second thing comes as a cascading outages, right? They are also named as blackouts, right? So the most famous blackout is of August 2003 that happened in the United States of America. So that Northeast blackout is still remembered as a main point, as a turning point for the present situation of the United States of powers, this power system in that particular thing. And after that, this resilience, reliability, and these things have taken, and after 2003, around 2003, this 2002, this concept of microgrid was there. And later, these things also started, the development of microgrid was started basically after this blackout, basically. Right, and if you want to read more about this detail, there is Anderson paper is there in IEEE direction of power systems, and that gives a clear vision on this recommended means to improve system dynamic performance based on the causes of 2003 major grid blackouts, right? And this particular blackout is a milestone because it affected 50 million people in America, and this 61.8 gigawatt of load was affected by this, right? And the Indians are not also behind in that, right? So Indians have also made a record in that. That is a world record, you can say. Yes, it is a world record. In India, July 30 and July 31, these are the 2 dates when for consecutively 2 dates, for continuous 2 days, these blackouts took place in 2 continuous days, July 30 and July 31, right? And it affected, July 30 blackout affected over 600 million people. That was almost a 1/10 of the world population at that time, right? And that is recorded as the largest power output in history of power system, right? So there are several resources, read about it. If you are within India, there are several reports of the power corporations and Ministry of Power, etc. But if you need a reference for this, IEEE Spectrum article was also there in 2012 on this, right? And then comes the cyber and physical attacks, right? Physical attacks, we are much aware about these things. Yes, when electricity is coming from long distance, and we do not know when this breakdown is going to repair. So, and other than this, in new times, there are several cyber attacks. You must have read last year's Uganda power system attack, then this Russian power system attack, right? So these are the cyber attacks which happened on these power systems, and they made it non-functional. So these are the new sort of threats which are coming, which we may have to see in the coming time when we are moving towards the smart systems. Okay, so these are the this is the energy security. Thus, energy security is a major driver. Then comes the economic benefits, as we have discussed that they are also this having the deferred cost, fuel saving, losses saving, etc., and different ancillary services, right? So this is one new thing which I would like to tell you about this. Ruling 755 and 784 from this US Federal Regulatory Commission, they have mandated the fast responding reserves like those used in microgrids be compensated based on their speed and accuracy, and definitely they are going to open the new revenue possibilities, so which may come as an economic benefit for the prosumers who are participating with these microgrid technologies in their distribution system. Then comes this clean energy integration. So this is again the participation of distributed resources and renewable resources. So definitely this is a clean energy integration is again a new thing. Okay. Deployment of microgrids is campus, military, residential, remote and rural microgrids. There are several examples are shown over here, and there's a very good paper which is giving a listing of these things. This is a Sustainable Energy Renew paper of 2016. The title is Microgrid Architecture, Policy and Future Trends. That gives a listing of these several examples of microgrid, and I can share you few of them. That these are the renewable resources microgrid projects, and one very famous example is Santa Rita Jail Smart Grid, Dublin, California, right? So this is the largest CERT protocol. This is highlighted here. The CERT protocol based microgrid. This is the largest setup is there. When 1.2 megawatt solar PV is there, 1 megawatt fuel cell is there, 5 wind turbines each of 2.3 kilowatt is there. Emergency backup diesel generators of 1.2 megawatt in 2 numbers, 2 megawatt advanced energy storage systems, 12 kilovolt sub-cycle static disconnect switch, etc. are there, right? So this has the power export and import capability also. So this is all about these microgrids. There are the challenges of this legal and regulatory uncertainty is there in few countries where this microgrid concept has not been legalized or not has been incorporated in the legal framework. And then some issues of this interconnection policies, and the countries are developing their grid codes to interconnection for interconnections. Then utility regulation and the positions are also there with this bi-directional power flow, and they are to be taken care if we want to develop these microgrids in future as a competing paradigms within these microgrids, right? And definitely they are going to develop the direction of electricity market in the coming time, right? So microgrid they are as old as the first generating power plant, as I told you in with the example of Thomas Alva Edison. But these new generation of power grids are equipped with sophisticated control and communication devices. They are based on smart grid concepts, and they are capable of enhancing the economies and reliability of this highly vulnerable electric power system as per the new scenarios in the power system, right? And this without a but very important thing is within this microgrid is the control strategy, because without a control concrete control strategy, these DERs and their components, they are basically the stranded assets, and they cannot say be reliable in their structure, right? So a perfect control is always, remember, please do remember that this perfect control is always important thing for a microgrid, right? So let me quote one quote from this former chairman of Motorola Corporation, late Robert W. Galvin has mentioned it. The perfect power microgrids will ensure absolute and universal availability of energy in the quantity and quality both, right? Please, this is quantity and quality both are the supports which are provided by the microgrid for power system, right? So they must meet every consumer's need, right? It is a system that never fails the consumer, right? So it has been accepted as a consumer-centric support for electricity. So when it comes about the reliability, the need for microgrids can be easily justified. And definitely in initial phases, you must understand the cost of the newer technology is always high, right? So, but there is a lot of way to go about this microgrid, where we can understand this new cost of this new technologies is definitely going to be useful, is definitely new investments are going to be useful in the coming time. Okay, so with these things, I will say thank you for this particular presentation. If you have any queries, please let me know.